Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of MSP Webinars. I'm Steve Taylor, your host, and today I am joined by Josh Lamb from DNSFilter. Josh, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Steve.
Absolutely. So DNSFilter, I'm just going to go out on a limb here for everyone and say you guys filter DNS. Is that accurate?
Correct. You
Right.
got it. It's all in the name.
Excellent. So with your DNS filtering, what I think is really interesting, and I don't know what happened, but like your video froze up for me. So I don't know if you want to try turning it off and back on. Um, but what I find interesting is you have two different models for people to pay. They can either pay per device, per agent, whatever you want to call it, or they can pay per like DNS lookup. But I think it's like per million lookups, or it's some like crazy high number. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. You can either have $1 per user per month, or $1 per 200,000 DNS lookups, which is basically what we estimate users will use in a month.
Got it. And that's pretty cool, because if you do the lookup version, maybe you have an office with a bunch of computers that maybe aren't used all the time. So it might actually be more cost effective to do the per lookup, because you just have people that aren't doing a lot of internet traffic on a bunch of the computers. So I like that, and I know that you'll probably go over some more pricing and pricing scenarios later on. Um, and I know that you have a slide deck to go over with us right now.
Right. Yeah. We just want to go over the anatomy of a phishing attack. We see this from, so basically, I'll step back a little bit. So I do business development for the company, and I love just meeting new people, especially managed service providers. We consider that to be really the main people that we want to support. And in that role, I just love to meet new people. So I love to do these webinars. Um, there's two sides to the business, really. So we do content filtering. This is especially important for schools, education institutions like that. They want to make sure that they have a reliable and clean internet experience for people. But on the other side of it, we're a threat mitigation provider. We fit in very nicely with your security stack. We're very good at that. We have an artificial intelligence engine that scans through, and so the topic of today's webinar is I just want to go over a phishing attack and how DNS-based filtering can fit in nicely with defending against that.
Awesome. Well, the floor is yours. So please take it away. I'm looking forward to learning what you have to show us when it comes to phishing attacks. Which, interestingly enough, I've been hearing a lot more about lately, phishing attacks. Um, and maybe you'll speak on this later as well, but I'm seeing a lot of people complaining about the phishing attacks actually getting through the spam filters. So hopefully you can kind of help mitigate some of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's see here. I'll go ahead and just go over our agenda. So I only have four things really that we'll go over during the presentation. One is just get a good definition of phishing, what it is, and in a general sense, and then go over the impact of phishing in terms of its damage to businesses. We'll explore inside a phishing attack, which is kind of the name of the whole webinar, and just look from beginning to end what it looks like and the things that you can watch out for. And then personally, I think the most important section is at the end when we talk about mitigation techniques. And we'll go over this during the presentation, but there's a lot that you can do to, I think, effectively minimize this to a very low level. If you employ all of these at once, they're not very hard, and they're things that can go a very long way towards protecting you and your users. So with that said, I'll go ahead here. So phishing is when someone sends an email that impersonates a trusted party, such as a bank, a credit card company, somebody that you do business with, somebody that your business interfaces with, so that you give up sensitive information. And so there's these two components here. One is impersonation. So this is more than any other type of attack. Phishing really has this element of pretending to be a trusted party. And then the second element here is trusted party. So whoever that is for you, that could be in a broad sense. That could be SaaS applications that you use, such as Google or Dropbox or Office 365. But more specific, if we're targeting something like a spear phishing campaign, which is more narrow, then it could be somebody that targets your business specifically. So the bank that you bank with, or a supplier, somebody like that that is a lot more specific to you. And this is the thing that makes phishing really tricky, is that it has this appearance of legitimacy. And so it's really hard for some users to be able to tell real from fake. And so moving on, I think it's important to really look at phishing in context, what phishing is in contrast to other types of attacks. So first, if we look at the infamous virus, viruses employ a software package typically onto host devices. And the purpose of a virus is really in large part to inflict harm on competing devices. So the attacker is usually motivated by fame or revenge. Could be a disgruntled customer or ex-employee, somebody that has a lot of computing knowledge, has a little bit of knowledge of the system, and wants to do that. Ransomware can fall into this category as well, where the goal is to freeze resources so they can extract payment. And that's that attack. Secondly, there's man-in-the-middle attacks. These attacks don't require a lot of software installation on the victim's end. They're really just an eavesdrop in the connection between the victim and another party, or an imitation of a trusted party. They can take place a lot more easily than people realize. I mean, you could go into a Starbucks or other internet, Wi-Fi provider, set up a free Wi-Fi access point, and most people would be none the wiser connecting to it, and you could collect some information that way. Third, we have denial of service attacks. This commonly takes place over the DNS protocol because it's the level that host names are translated to IP addresses. Again, DNS is really the phone book of the internet, making that translation. And so denial of service attacks are similar to viruses in the sense that the aim, the goal, is to cause a degradation of service. But perhaps more so than viruses, denial of service attacks are meant to bring down a large amount of computing resources, and they can be politically or economically motivated. So then fourth, we have phishing. So you can see, in contrast to all these other types of attacks, phishing really has a singular purpose, and that's to collect personally identifiable information, very sensitive information like social security numbers, credit cards, addresses, things like that. And because it has this singular focus, it places a huge emphasis on impersonation. As we've talked about in the other slide, it has to be able to trick you more than any other type of attack. So I mentioned email a little bit earlier, and the reason that phishers love email is because it works very well. So you can see on this first one, 92.4%, this is according to Verizon, of malware is distributed via email. And when we're talking about phishing messages specifically, 30% of phishing messages are opened and 12% of phishing messages are responded to. So if you think about that for your business, if 1 out of 10 employees in your company is clicking the link in that email, what type of information could they be divulging? What type of account information, supplier information, personnel information, trade secrets for your business? And remember that they think they're communicating with a trusted party already. And so the type of information they could give could be very sensitive.
And Josh, I'll be honest, I did not realize the click-through rate was as high.
Right. Yeah. It
But
is.
I did think that the open rate would be higher.
Yeah, that part is a little bit surprising. It kind of seems like everybody, would respond to that, but I think we're seeing a decrease in sort of the Nigerian prince type emails, and so I think a lot of people are at least a little bit more wiser to that. But I think people are curious. They'll click the link, see where it goes, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like. So let's look at the impact just shortly. So in terms of targeting, you can see here on that first donut graph that we have here, between SaaS and webmail applications and payment providers, that accounts for the lion's share of the types of emails your users can receive. And so what we're communicating in this chart is that things like Dropbox, Google, Office 365 are the ones that are commonly impersonated. So that's who the email is going to pretend to come from. And you can see that phishing accounts for 43% of all data breaches. So it's this is where the emails are going to come from, and it is a very big problem. Also, I want to highlight the HTTPS. So HTTPS is going to be you're going to see that green lock in your web browser indicating that you have an SSL connection to a server. But the anti-phishing working group from the last quarter of 2016 and the second quarter of 2018 saw the use of HTTPS going from 5% to 35% on phishing websites. So some people think that, just because you have that green lock icon, that it means you're somehow magically safe. But it doesn't mean that. It just means that you're communicating with that server over a secure connection. It doesn't mean that that server is somehow, the good guys, if that makes any sense. It just means that you have a secure connection to them. But if they're a phisher, then, that's not good. So
and
that's one of the biggest trends we see.
And let's be honest, it's easier and easier to deploy a free SSL certificate thanks to, Komodo and, gosh, I can't even think of the other one that started it all.
Oh, Let's Encrypt. Yeah.
Yes, Let's Encrypt. Thank you.
Absolutely. So it's very easy to do that. You don't have to talk to anybody. You don't have to pay anybody anything. Yeah, right. And so, I mean, in a sense, that's a good thing, but it also can backfire in terms of people thinking that somehow that means it's all okay. But yeah, that's a very good point. And this is a chart from Information is Beautiful. They're showing the world's biggest data breaches and hacks. So this isn't phishing specific, but if you look at this, it just shows the enormous impact of data breaches. So again, we just talked about phishing being 43% of data breaches. You see names on here like Equifax and Twitter and Facebook and Dell, Amazon. I mean, everybody has really been hit by different types of attacks. The Marriott one, staring you in the face in the middle, is actually very recent. This is from the end of November of last year. They revealed they've been hacked and 500 million guest accounts were stolen. So massive. So let's go ahead and take a look at what inside a phishing attack, what it looks like. I've divided this into really two broad preparation steps that phishers will take. The first is going to be the website preparation, and then the second is the email preparation. So if you look at the website preparation, they're trying to make you think that it's legitimate. So if you look at this image here, to some people, so this is a phishing image. This is false. This is not legitimate. And yet you can see from most people that this looks like it. They're copying the imagery and the background and things like that for a Google login. This can be done very easily. You can register a domain for less than $1, and then basically copy the content from Google and employ that there. In terms of what the website is going to be, they're going to have form code. It's usually very basic. Again, like 95% of the focus is going to be on what it looks like, and the other 5% is going to be on the form, the data collection. Typically, it's going to be your IP address, login credentials. Obviously, that's the whole point, and anything else they can collect through the browser as well. And this is because big companies have started some anti-phishing measures. This is why you get emails when people log in from a device that is in another state or from a new device, things like that. And so if they can collect other information the browser reports, they're more able to avoid triggering those systems if possible. So one example is if you log in from a certain IP address and you fill out this phishing form, they know that they can try to spin up a virtual machine or something at an IP address that's very close to that, so that they can not trigger those systems. The second part of this is going to be preparing the email package. There's two types of emails that are typically sent that are phishing emails. One is a programmatic or transactional email, so that's password resets, setting up a new account, things like that, things that you would sort of expect from that provider. The second thing is going to be newsletters, so things that are periodically sent out from a certain business, encouraging you to check new features, new products out, things like that. And that's, for a lot of people that will trigger at least a curiosity to open the email and to see what they're talking about. There's three main parts in the timeline of how a phishing attack works. So after that domain is prepared, they're going to send the email package. It's going to either target a pre-existing list of users or perhaps even more narrow scope if you're targeting a certain business. The second step is going to be that the user fills out the form that's on the site, and then the attacker is notified via email. This is a change in how things used to work a few years ago. So what used to be the case is that they would collect that information on the website, actually on the domain, and then they would periodically go in and check in on that, and they would download the list of the information that they collected. Now they will actually, the form post directly to sending an email to the phisher. So they have that information in their hands and right as soon as you hit the submit button. And then the last thing that happens is the user is redirected to the real login page, perhaps even a failed credential page. And this is so that they don't really think they're none the wiser of what happened. So they've just filled it out. It kicks back on the real login page and they think, oh, maybe I entered my password incorrectly, something like that. And they might not even realize that they had just done that on a phishing website. So now let's talk about mitigation techniques. This is really, I think, the most critical section. How do we combat this? There's three things you can do yourself in your organization for your users, and there's three things that your security vendors can do. So let's talk about these in turn. The first thing is user education. This is very huge. Training your users that they don't need to respond to the links in emails. They can visit their trusted source directly. If they get an email from the bank saying they need to verify something, they can log into the bank website directly, forget the email, and they can go in and do whatever the email asks them to do. And that's a good way to ensure that they're visiting authentic sources. Another thing that you can do is you can actually run phishing campaigns on your users. So this is kind of fun. Actually, you can, there's two packages, Kingfisher and GoFish, and you can run these campaigns. You'll be able to see, how users responded, who opened the email, who clicked the link, and who divulged information, things like that. And that can really arm you with ways that you can also educate your users more. The second thing is multi-factor authentication or two-factor auth. So what you can do is implement this where they need to enter a rotating key into the website in addition to their username and password, so that the attacker has to have more sources of login information. Now, this can help to thwart their attempts, but the problem is people tend to have the same username and password across multiple login, across multiple sites rather. So if they have the same username and password for their bank and for their personal email and for things like that, multi-factor authentication will help you on that one site, but it might not help you on other sites. So if you use that in combination with a password manager, which gives you a different password for each website that you use, you can minimize the damage to only one site, in theory, from a phishing attack, which is really great. There's also a few things that your security vendors can do. So one of them, they can incorporate multiple threat feeds. In this day and age, you don't want to rely on just one source of threat information. If you think that your antivirus alone is going to do everything, it's just not realistic with the emergence of threats being so rapid today. So a good filtering provider will incorporate multiple threat sources. The second thing you can do, and this is really big, I forgot to mention this, but many attacks and phishing campaigns are launched and ended within 30 days. The attacker can register the domain for $1. Again, like we were saying, Steve, you can get a Let's Encrypt certificate for free. And so in order to stay ahead of investigation and law enforcement and things that could actually do anything, they will run the campaign, they will end it, they will move on to something else in the blink of an eye. And so if you can incorporate gray listing, which is basically as soon as a domain is registered, you're saying, I don't trust it yet. I have never visited this website. I don't know what it is. And so you can block it, say, for 30 days or so. And then your users are not allowed to visit that website until that 30-day time period has expired. Anything that you do business with on a normal basis has already been registered, typically for years and years. I mean, Microsoft was probably registered in 1990 or something. So you have no problems in terms of it being a problem for your users to access sites that you need. And then the third thing is leveraging machine learning. So AI has been disruptive for every industry. When it comes to threat analysis, it's very good. One of the things that we do at DNSFilter is we actually have an image recognition component to our AI. So we train our scanner to recognize known brands and compare brand imagery to legitimate sources. So we're saying, hey, this is a Microsoft login box, but this is not Microsoft.com, flag it. And so that type of comparison in many ways can be better than your users can do. Your users don't know every single Microsoft domain that's legitimate or things like that. So that is a very powerful way. I think especially the second and third of these are just very important. Be able to know graylist new domains and use artificial intelligence. But yeah, I know that last slide is kind of a mouthful. So really, if anybody has any questions, I would love to answer those.
So I do have a couple of questions, and hopefully those that have questions can toss those into the Q&A section here on Zoom. So I'm curious, where did you get all of these statistics?
So a lot of them came from providers like Verizon, different studies that came out. The Anti-Phishing Working Group is a really great source of information. They keep a lot of statistics on things that happen. Yeah, so I couldn't recommend them, more highly. I think they're great.
Awesome. And do you know on average how old the stats are?
Oh, just where they can be found, or?
No, I'm sorry. Like the age of these, because some people will be like, by the year 2013, and then I'm like, whoa, hold up, it's 2019.
Right. Yeah.
So
I think everything I found was probably in the last 2 years or so.
Okay.
The anti-phishing one, they put out really a report annually. And so I think their statistics were actually, well, they put out a quarterly report, but then they also put out kind of an annual roll up. So I was able to get some quarter four 2018 statistics.
Oh, okay. And I guess the reason I ask is because some of these numbers could actually be higher, or in some cases worse, because if some of these things are 2 years old, phishing has definitely had an uptick in the last 6 months even.
Right.
So I just want I just want to try and keep some of that stuff in mind for the people here. All right, so I didn't notice, and maybe it's because I forgot the name of the company, but there's that website to help people cheat on their spouse with other people. I didn't see that on your list of breaches
Oh,
with all
right.
with all the fun bubbles. Was that was that one, like, because that one seemed big, like that made the national news. So are you saying that these are even bigger, or you just didn't
Yeah,
want to put one on?
they may not. They may. They may not have been on there. Let me see here. Their friend finder network is on here. I know that's.
Okay, so Brian says that was Ashley Madison. Brian knows all
Okay.
about that. If you have any questions, he can help. Oh, okay, Grinder's on there.
Yeah, I would have to look and see how big the breach was. Because again, some of these, I mean, 500 million. That's huge.
Yeah, I mean, Marriott, I did not realize. Wow. Wow. All right, so this was really neat. This was informative. I like what you had to say here. Um, and I think right now what we as MSPs need to be talking about is, how do we make ourselves more secure? Because here's an interesting one for you. Josh, did you hear about that MSP that got cryptoed in the last couple of weeks? It's been all
No.
over Reddit. That's why I thought I'd ask.
Okay.
So there's an MSP that got hit, and it wasn't phishing. So obviously it has nothing directly related with your presentation. But we even talked about this last week in a webinar, where there's an MSP that got hit by an encryption ransomware. And if you looked at their stack, they were doing everything right. Like they had the DNS filtering, the UTM by Sophos, and the Sophos software to keep them safe, and Vigilant, and this and that, and like the list goes on. Like they had all of this security in place, but it came down to being some kind of plug-in integration that ConnectWise wrote to integrate ConnectWise PSA with Kaseya RMM, and that right there just kind of flipped their whole world upside down. Now, here's one that I haven't told anyone yet. A couple days ago, one of my clients emailed me and said, "Hey, I need you to reset my boss's password for him." Now, he said my boss's password, but he said the boss's name, and the guy that reached out to me is the one that's in charge of IT. So I actually called him and I said, "Hey, did you send me this email?" "No, I don't know what you're talking about." So now we're going through and changing everyone's passwords, because
Right. Yeah.
it seems like they somehow got phished or something. So we as MSPs are being targeted more and more, because I think the hackers are starting to realize that we've already got the keys to the kingdom. So if they can get in with us, then they're going to make a boatload of money.
Right.
So I think that now is the time that we as MSPs need to start having conversations about security, especially for ourselves. I find a lot of MSPs, it's the same old story, just different industry. The mechanic's car, right?
Right.
It's like and a lot of us, we eat our cake, we drink our Kool-Aid, all that. But sometimes we just put our own stuff kind of on the back burner or lower on the list, because that's not making us money. So
Right.
I just want you guys to have that in the back of your heads. So, all right. So I've got questions. People are asking about some of your products. I've got one person that would love to have like a 60-second elevator pitch to compare DNS filter with other DNS filtering applications that you might use on a rainy day.
Right. Yeah, I see that question here from Cliff. So, Cliff, I would say, first of all, I think, especially as an MSP, that who you partner with is very important. So it's not necessarily just price, although I know price comes into a factor there. But you know, who is it you're partnering with? So the quick thing I would start off with is that DNSFilter actually was formed because our CEO was a wireless ISP CEO. He had this company and had used OpenDNS. And once Cisco bought them out, there was a renegotiation of the contract, and he just felt really frustrated about that. And so we actually were started as a company basically out of that frustration. And so we've been able to really grow in a ton of key areas. Again, as I mentioned, artificial intelligence. I think our use of that is a lot stronger than Cisco has. I think they're overpriced for what they offer. I think that really what you can see with us is that it does what it says on the tin. So we're able to provide a very lightweight, very convenient service. It's very robust. Again, our acquiring of WebShrinker for artificial intelligence is, I think, just huge for us. And it allows us to offer something at a very good price point, very solid and very reliable. I would mention also that our Anycast network is incredible. That allows us to do basically an automatic failover within, I think, about 2 seconds of any kind of issue with any of our nodes. It also allows you to have roaming agents. So people, you know, they get off the plane in whatever other country, they're immediately connecting to the nearest point of presence to their current location. And what is awesome is in the past 2 weeks or so, and we haven't really publicly said anything about this yet, but our response time has gone down to 22 milliseconds, which is very neck and neck with the response time that they offer in terms of your DNS request going out, getting filtered, and coming back. And so, yeah, I think we just offer something that, so I will be honest, we lack a little bit of Active Directory integration, but I think that's really the only thing that we can't do that they do. And I think that when you're comparing price points and things like that, for a lot of people, it's just, I think we're a better solution.
So I've seen a couple people ask about some pricing. So I'm actually going to share my screen here. So I want you guys to see if you go to the DNSFilter.com/pricing, you can start a 14-day trial. And then I want you to see he said they offer usage-based or per user based. So it's $1 a user as an MSP, right?
Correct.
And then how's the usage-based work again? $1 for?
The usage-based is $1 for every 200,000 DNS queries.
200,000, okay.
It depends on the activity of your network and especially how you're billing other people. So this is on a per network basis, so not even a per company basis. So as an MSP, say you supported 3 companies and company A has 2 networks. You could decide to do usage-based or user-based on each of those networks. So you have flexibility to do that. It matters if, so I would say usage-based is good for, you know, coffee shops, Wi-Fi providers, things like that you support. Sure. Whereas like a standard office, you know, you just have that billing that's steady. You know, you're able to say, okay, this office has 10 users, you know, things like that.
Now, how are we defining a user? Because let's see. So So let's say we have a company that operates 2 shifts, day shift, night shift. They have 10 computers, but there's 20 users because there's a user per computer per shift. So am I paying for 20 people to cover both? Does, you know what I mean?
Right. In that instance, I would probably just go with usage based. I think that would be
Okay.
better in that situation. Yeah.
Okay. And then I know that you have an agent, right? That we can install on computers.
Right. Yeah, we have an agent for Windows, and we're actually actively developing Android, iOS, and Mac OS. So within the
Hey,
next
nice.
quarter, we really are bringing it to all platforms.
All right, you see my little my buttons up here in the top left. That means I'm running a Mac, so I'm excited about that. All right, now let's talk about so Robert asked about your Safe Family DNS service. Where can I see that? Because I don't even know what he's talking about.
Take a look at the chat here.
That's actually in the Q&A. It says, tell us about your Safe Family DNS service.
I don't see his comment here, but I'll speak to that, Robert. So we don't actively really advertise the product to home users, but we do allow home users on our platform. So we're mostly a business-oriented solution, but the pricing really would be usage-based for someone that's a family or home user.
Got it. So with that, you're just charging them based on usage, $1 per 200,000, or?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the network charge, the minimum is $5, and so basically that's just a minimum commitment. So if you're a home user, you have one network, then you're committing to $5 a month, and usually the usage is about 500,000 queries or so. So it's a little bit under that.
And that's I mean, because that's giving you a million queries for that $5 or 5
Right.
users, depending on whichever route you go as an MSP anyway. Now,
Yeah.
as an MSP, are there minimums?
There is a minimum for MSP. So you would have the $5, per network minimum, which again, if you have 5 users, you meet that, and most people meet that pretty easily. And then it's $50 a month minimum commitment, which I like to say is basically if you supported 10 5-user networks, then that's 50 right there. So it's not a monthly charge. It's just like a minimum commitment. I mean, you can exceed that, or if you go underneath that, then it's $50 a month basically.
And all right. So how are you determining users? Is this honor system? Because we might not install the agent on every machine, right?
Right. You may not, depending on your situation. It really is an honor system. We trust that people that we do business with are going to be, pretty straightforward and honest about it. So that is how it operates.
And that's how those other guys with the rainy day, that's how they operate as well. And if on average, like, okay, if I give you 200,000 queries per user, because I assume that's what you're assuming is it's either $1 for a user or $1 for 200,000 queries. So if you're assuming 200,000 is probably on the higher end for one person's usage, if I tell you I've got 10 users, but you see 65 million queries in a month, we're going to have a conversation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be, we're able to kind of tell if people are way out of, proportion and things like that. Right. Now, on the flip side of that, if we see that your usage is just all of a sudden spiking like really high, then we will actually reach out to people and say, hey, maybe, because we can look and say, hey, this is actually, evidence of perhaps things are participating in a denial of service attack or something like that. This might not even be usage that people are doing, that there could be an infection or things like that. And so we'll reach out to MSPs and say, hey, this activity that we've seen, this huge spike, and just letting you know and things like that, and help them to negotiate through that situation. So I think that's kind of a hidden benefit as well.
And I want to respond to Cliff here. He said he doesn't like the usage for a multi-user system. He's thinking about the front desk computer at a doctor's office. It's just one computer, but it might have 4 people using it. And I think it would be safe to say you could say that's one user if you didn't want to do usage based, because let's be realistic here. The doctor's office is open for a single shift. They can only have one person using it. So as long as you are assigning it a user and the usage is looking correct, I don't think they're gonna hound you that you did it as a user instead of usage based. Is that fair, Josh?
Well, we probably wouldn't hound you, but I would still recommend usage-based. I think some people are a little hesitant. Okay, I don't want to rack up some huge bill or anything like that when it comes to usage-based. But really, a lot of people, you're picturing a doctor's office and one person on the computer like that. If you look at it, again, in our billing reports, we show you everything. Every day you can look at it. You can see all the recalculations. I would bet you that the usage from a scenario like that would be pretty low.
Got it.
So I think, and again, we're very open and upfront about what the billing is and everything like that. So I would encourage Cliff, if you just want to try it, we have a 2-week trial, and just try it out in that office and kind of see what your usage is. Some people just stay on usage for different networks because it's just very easy.
And the other thing I'm thinking, let's say it's a bigger doctor's office that has 15 computers in the office, but they have everything's in house. They haven't gone to the cloud yet, right? So they're probably not doing a lot of DNS. Because are you charging for internal DNS queries, or just stuff that goes to the internet?
Yeah, just stuff that goes to the internet. And that's because people they'll configure it on their router, so when it's forwarding out to the internet. So any local queries, matter of fact, we don't even see them. And so I think that's good. We don't want to see that.
Sure. So I think usage based might actually save you money if you think about it like that. If you've got a boatload of computers in an office that's doing everything's internal and they're not really surfing the web much, and that's your prerogative to as the MSP partner. If you want to try usage based and maybe it's saving you money as opposed to per user, I think it's going to be okay with DNSFilter, and I might be speaking out of turn here because their costs, obviously they have hard costs for labor and things like that, but their costs are also probably usage based on their end for their AWS instances of their DNS servers and whatever else they have for infrastructure.
Right. Yeah. It's just, I think it's better for everyone. And I would say it's cool you mentioned AWS, because actually we don't use them, and it's very good because they are great for a lot of things, but they don't have any CAS capability. And so we actually work with other tier 1 providers to do that. And
Awesome.
It's something some of our competitors actually use AWS, and we think it's better that we don't.
Good for you. And Cliff, you'll see a nice comment here in the chat. Andy said, I have one site around 20 PCs, and they only use 830,000 queries a month. It costs them around $9.50 a month. Another site with around 15 PCs, 400,000 queries, $8.55 a month. So, and Andy has said some really nice things about you before this webinar started. So it's nice to get a real world, okay, 20 PCs. And if you think about it, if you get much lower than 15 PCs, at that number of queries, you're going to be just hitting that minimum $5, and that's
right.
Not bad.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So I know I signed up for a trial, and then I just got busy, squirrel, and I haven't done anything with it. So I'm going to have to work with you guys to get my trial going again because I'm really interested in this. Now, all right, so now I'm actually going to name it. Okay, so I've used Cisco Umbrella in the past, and I know with Cisco Umbrella there were some extra steps, like if, for example, you're installing this in a domain environment. So with Umbrella, if I'm going to be installing this in a domain environment, I had to make sure I told Umbrella the domain. So maybe it's mspwebinars.local. I had to I had to tell it what I think I had to tell it what like the internal network is. So maybe it's 192.168.1.0 or whatever. And then I think I had to tell it what the internal DNS server used to be. So whatever the domain controller is. How does that work with you? Because with Umbrella, so when you install that agent, it's changing the DNS entries on the local computer to be pointing to localhost 127.0.0.1, and then that Umbrella software is running a service, and it's passing all of your DNS traffic through it.
Correct. Yep. And our agent actually operates on a very similar way.
Okay. So what do we have? Are you able to like show us your dashboard? Like what does it look like when an MSP logs in? Because I'd like that.
Let me go ahead and open that up here.
And your screen is not being shared if you didn't know.
I'll just go ahead and log in
and then while you're doing that, are there like different tiers or anything? Like, once we sell so many dozens or hundreds or whatever, we start getting better pricing, or the price is what it is, whether it's one computer or a million?
The pricing is the same, but our tiers, so there's 3 tiers, and you'll have, more API access. You'll have the ability to reach out to support via different channels. And, if you want text or phone support, things like that.
Ah. So you start treating us better the more money we give you. He didn't deny it.
Well, it's more availability. Yeah, we could say that.
It's all good.
Right, let me go ahead and I'll share my screen here.
Oh, and real quick, for those of you who thought the math from a couple minutes ago was wrong, Andy said he was reading the report wrong. And the site that had like $9.50, it's not 830,000 queries, it's 1.9 million. And the same with the other site. So yeah, it is, they're not paying very much, but it is like twice as many queries as he thought. Okay,
yeah,
so that's
really affordable. So this is what the dashboard looks like. As an MSP, you're able to manage your MSP account. You can pick from the different clients that you have. And then this is just an overview of your most active sites, the top domains that are being visited. And you can see the query volume that's taking place today, as well as the amount of queries every second. You can go in here, and so say if I were to pick, a certain client, I could go in then and I can manage the different policies. You can also set up filtering schedules. And so if I were to add a schedule here, I would be able to apply, different
so
policies.
You can block people from Facebook except for when it's lunchtime, for example.
Right, yeah, lunch or weekends, things like that. You can apply different policies. And then you can also configure block pages that you're showing to users. You're then able to manage deployments too. So you can manage IP addresses and assign policies and block pages to the different networks that you manage. And then you can also deploy user agents. And our newest feature is LAN proxies. as well. So this will be, it's kind of like the user agent, but it's on the network. So you're able to apply filtering to individual computers, instead of the whole network having one policy and things like that. There's a way to change that right now. You can apply different roaming agents, and you can have an individual policy even to specific computers if you want that level of granularity.
And I see, can we go back to that deployments?
Yeah,
If you click on Mohawk Industries, I'd love to see what happens when we dig a little deeper.
you're able to
Okay.
see, just the IP address information,
So
location,
what
and
exactly
mapping. So if you go to the overview too,
is
it'll
that
show
IP
that
is that
map
IP
information.
like the external WAN IP?
Correct. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's how we identify the networks that are our customer networks. Otherwise, we operate a closed resolver, which is very good for security. So we don't answer DNS queries from unknown people. So it's not like Google or things like that, where they'll just answer anybody's DNS queries. We only answer queries for our customers.
Good for you. And I saw in that deployments page, it said assigned block page.
Yep. So you can assign, if I had different types of block pages here, I could assign them. So
So we
as an
can
MSP, you could
customize the
have,
block page.
as customizable as you want. So if I were to go in here and add a new one, you're able to do two main things. You can either just change the name and email and logo and things like that, or you can actually redirect to a custom block page if you have your own website block page that you have.
So if I made a page on my website called blocked, mspwebinars.com/blocked, I could actually have a custom page that says, hey, sorry, I blocked this page, but here's a form, fill it out and tell me why you need it, and I'll consider it.
Yep, you could. Yeah, if you have your own
And
infrastructure for all that, then you can totally do that. The hosted block page will also have that functionality as well, though.
can you show us what it looks like, the hosted one?
Right. Let's see. If you go to block.dnsfilter.com, that's kind of our example of that. And so I
And
have
then
kind of a,
that little coffee logo, is that what would be the logo if we uploaded that logo?
yep. Yeah, it'd be here, and you could see, it's what domains being blocked and the organization name that you put in here. So that would be what you put in this field here. And then if they clicked on the reporting thing, I can refresh that so that kind of shows up again. But if you click here, they can fill out this form, and that'll get sent to the email address that you put in here. It could be your admin or help desk email. So if you wanted it to go straight into your ticketing system, you could do that.
And I gotta say, I like yours better than those other guys. And I think, and it's the silliest reason. Yours is can you go back to that again?
Yeah.
It's got a big red, like, no, wait, stop, danger. Theirs is very gray.
Right.
So yours is, it's very clear that something has happened. And I like that you still have the little bypass block. So if we give them a special password, they can bypass it, right?
Right. Yeah. You can go in here to this bypass thing, and you can display that and enter that password right there. We are going to work on overhauling that this year, so you can do more robust things with it. If you wanted to issue, a 1 week pass or, things like that. Sometimes you don't
Nice.
just want to have one password for it. So
And then earlier I asked about with Umbrella. I just remember I had to give it all kinds of information about my internal network, so it would leave my internal network stuff be. So what do I have to do when I set up a new site with DNSFilter so that way the internal network is still seeing the domain controller and all the other servers and phones and everything else using the DNS name without being broken?
what you want to do in that situation, and this would just be a stock installation really, is to set it as a DNS forwarder for your domain controllers. So if you
But
set
what
it
if we
there,
install the agent? Because we
if
have
you're
mobile
using,
laptops, right?
right, yeah, if you're using the agent, it actually will automatically route local queries to local domain controllers. So the way that it does this is before the agent activates itself, it takes a snapshot of your network settings and basically any local domains that are being passed to it by DHCP. It will store those so that those queries then are sent there.
So, yes, I agree, Dave. All internal computers should be using your domain controller as the DNS server. You should set up forwarders on the domain controller to forward external DNS queries over to DNSFilter. But like I said, let's talk about those laptops. Those are mobile and yada yada yada. So what Josh just said is we can install the agent, and the agent's going to take a snapshot. Now, here's me maybe overthinking this. Let's say using my RMM tool, let's call it Kaseya. Let's say I decide to push out DNSFilter at 9 p.m. tonight because I don't know. I want to do it after hours for whatever reason. So the laptops are home. They're on, but now they're home. They're not in my domain network. So when it takes that snapshot, is it because it took the snapshot while they're at home and then tomorrow they go to the office, are they going to have problems?
No, it actually will respond. So what triggers this is anytime there's a change in the network adapter. So it'll recognize that now you've changed, you've connected to your home network, and it will do that. It also, every 60 seconds, will check for a change. So in case for whatever reason that didn't work, it will check every 60 seconds, see if there's been a change. And so, yeah, you'll be good, off network, you'll be good at home, on things like that.
So if I'm understanding correctly, you've built your tool so that way it's, I think the technical term is more gooder.
Right.
More gooder than the other guys. And I won't name names on who those other guys are, but it's not raining anymore if this is more gooder. And what I mean is we don't have to go in and tell it, oh, here's my local domain, mspwebinars.local, ignore these. You're saying I don't have to do any of that because your agent is smarter.
Yeah, it is smart enough to recognize all of that, as well as if you wanted to, for whatever reason, add other local domains that are not pushed out by DHCP, then you would be able to, by a command line install flag, add those as well, or manually add those if you needed to. But anything that's added with DHCP will just automatically be taken care of. So yeah, you don't even have to add that.
Well, excellent. Does anyone else have any other questions? PSA or RMM. So, whether it's Datto, RMM, Datto Autotask, ConnectWise, the whole suite, Kaseya, I guess Ninja. Are you guys looking to do any type of integrations?
We are hoping to do that. We have a feature request. I think if you go to feedback here, we have some people asking for integrations. We're looking at, I guess, Autotask and ConnectWise is the most voted one. And we really look at this a lot for any of we have a very public roadmap of different features that people are requesting for. We're regularly here and respond to that. In terms of integrations, I would say the things we're looking at first for that would be ConnectWise and BrightGauge for reporting. But right now, a lot of these so if you reach out to our support, we can help you to use those right now to install it, because you can package it, it's already packaged as an MSI. You can package it as an MST with all the, API key type, information in there. So for a lot of this, it will work right now. It might not be a tight integration, but if you reach out to support, we can definitely help you with that. We've done that in the past with a few of these. for people, and it ends up not being too difficult to set up.
Awesome. And I just want to clarify, because I think I heard you say it earlier. There's like, I'll call it a generic installer where I can use this one exe or MSI or whatever, and then use some switches after that in the command line to make sure it's getting assigned to the appropriate client or network, right?
Right. Yep. We have all of that. And let me look at this. Just do a little.
And honestly, like, what you guys may want to do is, and maybe this is something I can help you guys with, is for each of the RMM tools, you really should just have a document or a guide. Here's how you set up your RMM so that way it has all of the appropriate user-defined fields. So you can pop our specific keys into these fields, and then the deployer can use those fields as UDFs in the script. That's doable, just so you know.
Right. Yeah.
So, well, very cool. This was very informative. I am looking forward to trying out your tool. I need to prioritize that higher on my list, because I'm really impressed. You guys have made it easy. You've made DNS fun again.
That's probably the biggest compliment, Steve. Yeah. Easy, fun, just all of that. I know people probably don't want to spend all day setting something like that up, and so we try to make it pretty simple to do.
And one more thing before we go. Can you show me the content filtering, how that works? And who do you use as your content filtering provider, if that makes sense?
So that would be really a combination of two things. One would be kind of how we talked about a little bit in the presentation. We have different sources that will provide us, information, whether it be threat feeds or whether it be, really just threat feeds, actually, because a lot of the content we classify ourselves with our AI engine, and that's called Web Shrinker. So that really is the source. It crawls the internet and it ingests those domains and classifies them according to content. If people flag something, we have a reporting mechanism where people can flag, if they think something is, the wrong category, things like that, and we'll evaluate it. But that is the lion's share of anything, is our AI categorization engine. I think your microphone is muted too.
I was just making sure you're paying attention. Josh, I really appreciate you coming out, giving us this presentation on phishing, giving us a presentation on DNSFilter, answering all of our questions. Thank you so much. This was great.
My pleasure, Steve. Thank you.
And if anyone else here has any questions, stick around. I'll hopefully get Josh to stick around for just a few more minutes to answer those. And next week, come right back here to mspwebinars.com and check out all of our upcoming webinars. Have a great day, guys.